I still believe, in spite of everything, that people are truly good at heart. These were the tender words of 13-year-old Anne Frank, inscribed in her diary from her hiding place in Amsterdam, before she and her sister were discovered by the Gestapo and deported to Bergen-Belsen concentration camp, where they both perished in 1944. Her words reflect indomitable hope in the midst of overwhelming despair. Her words portray the desperate struggle of a child to hold on to the light of innocence in a world surrounded by darkness. Her words starkly contrast the radical evil of the Holocaust with an abiding faith in human goodness. Her words quite simply portray the 20th century, a century of extremes in which humankind conceived its greatest ideals of human rights and justice, and yet witnessed the destruction of so many hopes and illusions. The 20th century has been described as the century of genocide. It opened in 1915 with the mass killing of almost 1.5 million Armenians by the Ottoman Empire, followed by the 1932 Ukrainian famine, in which millions perished under Soviet rule. And its apotheosis was the extermination of 6 million Jews in the Nazi Holocaust, an unprecedented attempt to eradicate an entire race of people in the heart of modern Western civilization. In 1948, amidst the post-war euphoria that followed this calamity, the United Nations adopted the Genocide Convention and undertook to prevent and punish this odious scourge. But the vow to never again allow such horrors to happen soon became an empty mantra. Millions upon millions became victims of genocide on the altar of political tyranny and international cynicism. Idi Amin's mass murder in Uganda, Mengistu's Red Terror in Ethiopia, the Khmer Rouge killing fields of Cambodia, the slaughter of Mayan Indians in Guatemala, the gassing of Iraqi Kurds by Saddam Hussein, the mass execution of Bosnian Muslims at Srebrenica, the extermination of Rwandan Tutsis. These are but sample chapters in a sweeping epic of evil in the recent past. These icons of unchecked radical evil speak to our repeated failure to give practical effect to our righteous declarations and pious aspirations, to respect the fundamental principles of the UN Charter. And while we remember, regret, and mourn all these past tragedies of the 20th century, yet another genocide unfolds in the Darfur region of Sudan in the opening years of the 21st century. It seems that never again has become ever again. Against this dark historical legacy, there are glimmerings of hope. In the establishment of the International Criminal Court in 1998, in the prosecution of leaders like Slobodan Milosevic or the Rwandan genocidaire before international tribunals, we have witnessed the emergence of a new political culture in which impunity for genocide may be gradually eradicated. Another hopeful sign is the appointment in 2004 by the UN Secretary General of a special advisor on the prevention of genocide. The focus and profile of this mandate opens the possibility that a culture of reaction, of waiting until it is too late to act, may gradually be replaced by a culture of prevention, focused on early warning and timely action. We are privileged to have in our midst both the former and current UN Special Advisors, Mr. Juan Mendez and Mr. Francis Deng, who will share their valuable insights with us in this conference. And there are the success stories, too, of the preventive deployment of peacekeepers in Macedonia, which may have averted yet another round of ethnic cleansing in the former Yugoslavia, or the remarkable preventive diplomacy of one of our speakers, Ambassador Howard Wolpe of the United States, that may have helped prevent a full-scale genocide in Burundi similar to neighboring Rwanda. While these promising signs show us the way, the challenges remain daunting and they remain immediate. Just last week, the world witnessed with hope the inspiring saffron revolution of the Buddhist monks of Burma, marching for democracy in the streets of Rangoon. But following a violent crackdown and media blackout by the military junta, reports are emerging that those same monks may now be victims of systematic torture and mass murder, the extent of which remains unknown. And it remains to be seen if the international community will respond adequately to this latest assault on humanity. In view of the urgency of the challenge before us, I began this address with the intimate words of Anne Frank, a 13-year-old child who found herself in the gloom of seemingly impossible evil. I started with her words because they reflect an abiding faith in our capacity for goodness. Because her words remind us of who we are as human beings and why we are gathered here today. We are gathered here today because, as Edmund Burke so aptly said, all that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. The radical evil that the term genocide represents is not an inescapable fact of history to be